When it comes to reducing gas prices, former President Donald Trump has a straightforward plan: drill, baby, drill. The idea is simple: drill more oil here in the US, increase supply, and bring down prices at the pump. However, the reality of how oil markets work is much more complicated, and there are many reasons why drilling more oil might not lead to cheaper gas for American consumers. Let's break down why that is. One of the first things to understand is that not all crude oil is the same. The U.S. mostly produces light crude oil, which is easier to refine compared to heavy crude. However, many of the refineries in the U.S. are actually designed to process heavy crude oil, not light crude. These refineries were built over decades to take advantage of cheaper, imported heavy crude oil, which has a lower cost per barrel compared to lighter varieties. Because of this, a lot of the oil we produce here, which is lighter, isn't suitable for many of our refineries. So, what happens? The U.S. exports a significant amount of its light crude to other countries that can easily refine it. In return, we import heavy crude, which our refineries can handle. The system works, but it means that just drilling more oil in the U.S. doesn't automatically translate to cheaper gas prices at the pump. A significant amount of our domestically produced oil gets shipped overseas, and we continue to import the kind of oil we need. To really understand why drill, baby, drill might not lower gas prices, we need to dig deeper into the economics of oil refining. The process of refining crude oil into usable products like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel involves specialized equipment and technology that must be tailored to specific types of crude. Heavy crude is denser, contains more impurities, and requires more complex refining processes to convert into gasoline. Many U.S. refineries have made significant investments in the infrastructure needed to handle heavy crude because, historically, it has been cheaper to buy than light crude. That means that switching gears to process more light crude would require additional investments that are not guaranteed to be profitable. Another issue is the cost of upgrading refineries to process more light crude oil. Building or upgrading refineries is incredibly expensive. It costs billions of dollars and takes years, if not decades, to plan, permit, and construct. And it's not just the money. There are significant regulatory, environmental, and legal hurdles to building new refineries in the U.S. Because of this, oil companies are reluctant to make these investments, especially when market conditions and government policies can change rapidly. They don't want to spend billions on a refinery that might not be profitable if demand drops or if there's a shift in policy towards renewable energy. For example, building a new refinery involves getting permits from multiple government agencies, complying with strict environmental regulations, and potentially dealing with community pushback. People don't want refineries built in their neighborhoods due to concerns about pollution, health risks, and property values. Even if an oil company decides that it wants to invest in a new refinery, it could take a decade or more to actually bring it online. The costs and uncertainty involved make it a risky bet, and oil companies are not willing to take that risk without a clear return on investment. Even if the U.S. were to increase drilling, it doesn't mean that American consumers would see lower gas prices. That's because oil is a globally traded commodity, and its price is set by the global market. Factors like OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, production decisions, geopolitical tensions, and overall global demand all play a major role in determining oil prices. For example, if a major oil-producing country faces political instability, oil prices can spike globally, regardless of how much oil the U.S. is producing at the time. This means that even if the U.S. drills more, it might not have much of an impact on gas prices here at home if global factors are pushing prices up. Another important factor is that oil companies are not price setters in the way that people might think. They're price takers because they have to sell their oil at the market price, which is influenced by many different factors outside of their control. This is why, during periods of low prices, companies often reduce production because it's not profitable to keep pumping oil when they can't sell it at a price that covers their costs. Increasing production doesn't always lead to lower prices, sometimes it just leads to oversupply, which can drive prices down to the point where drilling becomes unprofitable, leading companies to cut back. It's also worth noting that the oil and gas industry is a business, not a public service. Companies are not going to produce more oil simply because it would benefit consumers. They make decisions based on profitability. If it's not profitable to drill, refine, or expand capacity, they won't do it no matter what political leaders might say or promise. Building new infrastructure like pipelines or refineries involves huge costs and risks, and companies are not eager to take those risks unless they see a clear path to profit. The concept of energy independence is often brought up in discussions about increasing domestic oil production. The idea is that if the U.S. produces enough oil to meet its own needs, it won't be affected by global price fluctuations. However, because oil is traded on a global market, even if the U.S. were to produce enough oil to meet domestic demand, it would still be subject to global price changes. If there's a supply disruption anywhere in the world, prices will go up everywhere, including in the U.S. Energy independence doesn't mean price independence, and this is a key point that is often misunderstood in the debate over domestic drilling. Environmental regulations also play a role. The process of drilling for oil and building refineries has a significant impact on the environment, and there are strict laws in place to minimize these impacts. These regulations can make it more costly and time-consuming to increase production. While some argue that rolling back these regulations could make it easier to drill and refine oil, doing so would come with serious environmental consequences that many people are not willing to accept. Oil spills, air pollution, and habitat destruction are all risks associated with increased oil production, and these risks have to be carefully managed. Rolling back regulations might make it cheaper to produce oil in the short term, but the long-term environmental costs could be significant. There is also the issue of public opinion. While some Americans support increased drilling, others are strongly opposed to it due to environmental concerns. The debate over drilling often pits economic interests against environmental protection, and finding a balance between the two is challenging. Politicians who advocate for increased drilling may face significant opposition from environmental groups and from communities that would be directly affected by new drilling projects. This opposition can lead to delays, legal battles, and increased costs, all of which make it harder to bring new oil production online. Ultimately, the drill approach sounds appealing because it promises a simple solution to a complex problem. But the reality is that the oil market is influenced by a wide range of factors, many of which are beyond the control of any single country. Increasing drilling in the U.S. might boost domestic production, but it's unlikely to have a major impact on global oil prices or significantly lower gas prices for American consumers. The factors that determine gas prices are far more complex than just the amount of oil being produced, and addressing those factors requires a more nuanced approach than simply drilling more. In the end, the best way to reduce our vulnerability to high gas prices may not be to drill more, but to invest in alternatives that reduce our dependence on oil altogether. This includes renewable energy sources, improving fuel efficiency, and encouraging the development of electric vehicles. These solutions might not provide immediate relief at the pump, but they offer a more sustainable path forward in the long term, reducing our reliance on the ups and downs of the global oil market and giving consumers more stability and control over their energy costs. Renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydroelectric power have the potential to significantly reduce our dependence on oil. By generating electricity from renewable sources, we can reduce the need for oil to generate power. Additionally, electric vehicles EVs are becoming more popular and more affordable, and they offer a way to reduce our reliance on gasoline. The more people switch to EVs, the less demand there will be for gasoline, which could help bring down prices in the long run. Improving fuel efficiency is another important step. The more efficient our cars, trucks, and other vehicles are, the less fuel they need to travel the same distance. This reduces overall demand for gasoline and can help bring down prices. Fuel efficiency standards have already made a big difference in reducing fuel consumption, and continued improvements in technology could lead to even greater savings. There is also the potential for alternative fuels, such as hydrogen and biofuels, to play a role in reducing our dependence on oil. Hydrogen fuel cells can be used to power vehicles, and biofuels can be blended with traditional gasoline to reduce the amount of oil needed. While these technologies are still in the early stages of development, they offer promising possibilities for the future. Another aspect to consider is the importance of public transportation and urban planning. By investing in public transit systems and designing cities in a way that reduces the need for driving, we can reduce overall demand for gasoline. Public transportation is often more efficient than individual car travel, and encouraging its use can help lower gas prices by reducing demand. Urban planning that promotes walking, cycling, and the use of public transit can also make a big difference in reducing our reliance on oil. In summary, while the drill approach may sound like an easy solution to high gas prices, the reality is far more complicated. The global nature of the oil market, the challenges of refining capacity, the influence of OPEC, environmental concerns, and the economics of the oil industry all play a role in determining gas prices. Simply increasing domestic oil production is unlikely to lead to significantly lower prices at the pump, and it comes with a host of challenges and risks. The path to lower gas prices and greater energy security lies not in drilling more, but in diversifying our energy sources and reducing our dependence on oil. Renewable energy, electric vehicles, fuel efficiency, alternative fuels, and public transportation all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable and stable energy future. By investing in these alternatives, we can reduce our vulnerability to the fluctuations of the global oil market and create a more resilient energy system for the long term.